He was only 17 when his life shattered. Wearing a robe that glimmered like the dawn, Joseph walked through the fields of Canaan, dreaming of greatness. But dreams, his brothers decided, were dangerous things, especially his. They watched him from a distance, eyes burning with envy, plotting something dark. One moment he was there, and the next they pounced, stripping him of his robe, throwing him into a deep, sunless pit. Their plan was simple: let him rot. Their reason was simpler still. He dared to dream too big. Joseph wasn't just another boy. He was the favorite of his father, Jacob, the son of his beloved wife Rachel, born in her old age after years of longing. Jacob's love was unmistakable. A richly ornamented tunic, a robe of many colors, a symbol that Joseph carried with pride and, unknowingly, with peril. His brother's jealousy had been simmering for years. Each whispered complaint, every frown at his return from tending the flocks with a bad report about them, each seed of resentment growing quietly into fury. And then there were the dreams. Joseph shared them eagerly, unaware of the storm they stirred. "We were binding sheaves in the field," he told his brothers one evening, "when suddenly my sheaf stood upright, and yours gathered around mine and bowed down." The words hung in the air like a knife. "Do you intend to reign over us?" one brother spat. "Will you actually rule us?" It was a challenge, even a threat. And the brothers, blinded by envy, took it as an insult. Then Joseph dreamed again, this time of the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing to him. Even Jacob, though he kept the words in his heart, warned him to be cautious. But Joseph, as always, was too honest, too faithful to his visions. Not long after, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields near Shechem. Dressed in his colorful robe, he walked alone into danger. The moment his brothers saw him, hatred boiled over. "Here comes the dreamer," they muttered. Plans of murder were whispered, teeth clenched in fury. But Reuben, the eldest, stepped in. "Do not kill him. Just throw him into the pit. Perhaps we can rescue him later." They attacked swiftly, tearing the robe from his back, tossing him into the dark well like yesterday's trash. Then, as if it were a normal day, they sat down to eat. Their meal interrupted only by the sight of a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passing through the valley. Judah's voice cut through the murmur of anger. "What will we gain if we kill him? Let's sell him instead." And just like that, Joseph's freedom was exchanged for 20 shekels of silver, and the dreamer began his journey into Egypt, chains clinking with every step. Reuben returned too late. Joseph was gone. To cover their betrayal, the brothers smeared the tunic in goat's blood and presented it to Jacob. "Look," they said, feigning sorrow. Jacob's heart shattered. "It is my son's robe! A ferocious animal has devoured him!" He mourned, days stretching into weeks, inconsolable. And so began the exile of the dreamer, the boy who dared to rise above jealousy, hatred, and betrayal, a journey that would lead him from the pit of despair to the heights of power, and from the pain of loss to the redemption of forgiveness. Egypt, a land of golden sands, towering pyramids, and bustling markets. It was here that Joseph, the dreamer, stepped in chains into a world foreign and unforgiving. Sold to Potiphar, Pharaoh's officer and captain of the guard, Joseph had nothing but the tunic ripped from his back, the weight of betrayal in his heart, and a faith that refused to die. Yet even in slavery the Lord was with him. Potiphar soon realized that Joseph was not just any servant. He was sharp, diligent, and trustworthy. The household prospered under his care. Everything he touched flourished. The other servants watched with envy, but Joseph remained steadfast, his eyes always lifted to the God who had not abandoned him. But temptation was never far. Potiphar's wife noticed him, took the boy with the golden robe now replaced by simple linen, still radiant, still remarkable. She lured him, whispering promises and threats. But Joseph's integrity held firm. "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" he said, his voice steady, refusing her enticement. Her fury turned to deceit. She cried false accusations, accusing Joseph of assault. Potiphar's anger was swift and unrelenting. Joseph, the faithful, the innocent, was thrown into prison. Dark, cold, and lonely, the prison walls became Joseph's new home. And yet, even here, the Lord was with him. He earned the trust of the warden, and before long, he was overseeing the other prisoners, organizing their lives and maintaining order. Life could have broken him, but it didn't. It sharpened him. Time passed. Two of Pharaoh's officials, the chief cupbearer and the baker, found themselves in prison for offenses against their master. Both were troubled by mysterious dreams, each night restless, unable to find meaning. Word spread of Joseph's gift, and when he spoke, he said, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer told his dream first. Joseph listened, the flickering torchlight casting shadows across his face. Then he spoke. "In 3 days, you will be restored to your position before Pharaoh." Hope glimmered in the cupbearer's eyes. The baker followed, his hands trembling. Joseph's words came like a cold wind. "In 3 days, you will be executed." The baker's face drained of color, fear cutting deep. 3 days later, the prophecies came true. The cupbearer was restored. The baker hanged. Joseph pleaded with the cupbearer before he left. "Remember me when you are restored. Speak of me to Pharaoh. Free me from this prison." But the man forgot. He did not speak. Years crept by. Days blurred into months, months into 2 long, bitter years. And still Joseph waited. His faith did not waver. His hope did not falter. The dreams he had as a boy, the visions of sheaves bowing, the sun and moon and stars had not abandoned him. Somewhere, he knew, God's plan was moving, even if the world could not see it. And then Pharaoh dreamed. Dreams of strange, troubling visions that none of his magicians could explain. Egypt trembled, its greatest ruler unsettled. And someone remembered the Hebrew prisoner, the boy sold into slavery, the dreamer who had never lost faith. Pharaoh sat on his golden throne, eyes heavy with worry. His dreams had left him restless. Visions of fat cows devoured by skinny ones, of abundant stalks of grain swallowed by barren ones. None of his magicians or wise men could interpret them. Egypt trembled. That's when the cupbearer remembered the Hebrew prisoner, the boy whose faith had never faltered, the man whose God had always been with him. Joseph was summoned. Chains clinked as he walked into the palace, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. "I cannot interpret dreams," he said humbly, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." The court fell silent. A simple man, a foreigner, speaking with authority born not of power, but of truth. He listened carefully to Pharaoh's recounting. Then Joseph spoke, each word precise, each sentence carrying weight. "The 2 dreams are one," he said. 7 years of great abundance will come upon Egypt, but following them, 7 years of severe famine will sweep the land. A wise man must be appointed to store grain during the years of plenty, to preserve life through the years of famine. Pharaoh's eyes widened. "Can we find anyone like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" he asked his council. There was none. There was only Joseph. At just 30 years old, Joseph was appointed second in command of all Egypt. He oversaw the collection and storage of grain, preparing the nation for the famine that would come. He was no longer a slave. He was a savior of nations, a dreamer made real by faith and perseverance. Then came the famine. It was harsh, spreading across the land, reaching even Canaan. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, but he kept Benjamin, Joseph's only full brother, at home. 10 of them bowed before Egypt's governor, unaware that the man they bowed to was their own brother, the one they had betrayed. Joseph recognized them immediately, but he concealed his identity. He spoke through an interpreter, testing their hearts. "You are spies," he accused, eyes piercing, voice sharp. Panic and confusion rippled through the brothers. They stammered, recounting their story. 10 sons of one man, one missing, the youngest still at home. Joseph's test deepened. He bound Simeon in front of them, keeping the boy as collateral, and sent the rest home with grain, and secretly returned silver hidden in their sacks. They would return, Benjamin included, if their hearts were true. When they returned, Joseph prepared a feast, seating them as honored guests. Yet his test was not over. A silver cup was slipped into Benjamin's sack. As the brothers departed, Joseph's steward chased them, accusing them of theft. Panic gripped their hearts. Would they abandon Benjamin, as they had abandoned Joseph, or had time and guilt changed them? Judah stepped forward, speaking with a voice that no longer carried jealousy, but repentance. "Take me instead," he pleaded. "Let the boy go home. If he doesn't return, our father will die of heartbreak." Joseph's heart, hardened by years of betrayal, began to soften. The dream had not been about power. It had been about transformation, about testing hearts, about redemption, about forgiveness. The hall was silent. The Egyptian officials had left, and only Joseph's brothers remained, tense, unsure, hearts pounding. And then Joseph spoke, the words breaking like thunder and light all at once. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Silence. Their faces drained of color. They could barely breathe. The man before them, the powerful ruler in fine robes, the master of Egypt's grain, the dreamer they had betrayed, was the very brother they had thrown into a pit so many years ago, and now he wept before them. "Come closer," Joseph said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Do not be afraid. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. God sent me ahead of you to preserve life." Tears streamed down his face as he embraced them, his forgiveness complete. The dreams, the trials, the years of suffering, they had all been part of a greater plan. His life, once shattered, had been reshaped to save many, including the very men who had tried to destroy him. Word of Joseph's identity reached Pharaoh, who was pleased beyond measure. He commanded that Jacob and his family be brought to Egypt, along with wagons, silver, and gifts. The man who had been lost to them, the dreamer, was alive, thriving, and in the highest seat of power next to Pharaoh himself. Jacob and his family journeyed to Egypt, 70 souls in all, crossing the deserts, the rivers, the unknown lands. When they arrived, father and son finally reunited. Jacob held Joseph close, weeping, blessing him, marveling at the hand of God that had guided them both. And Joseph, in turn, reassured his brothers. "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to save many lives." Joseph lived to see his children and grandchildren grow, to witness the fulfillment of promises made long before he was born. Before his death, he reminded his brothers of God's faithfulness. "God will surely come to your aid. When you leave this land one day, take my bones with you," he instructed, a promise of hope and faith carried into the future. Though Joseph died in Egypt, his story was far from over. Centuries later, when Moses led Israel out of Egypt, Joseph's bones traveled with them through the Red Sea, across the wilderness, through trials and victories, until they were finally laid to rest in Shechem, the land he had dreamed of as a boy. The dream had never been about ruling. It had been about saving, forgiving, and trusting God's plan even when the world seemed lost. The dreamer had become the savior.